January 2026 turned out to be quieter than expected for BLs. This video is technically a continuation of my January 2026 BLs to watch list. But if you're watching this one first, don't worry, this video stands on its own, and if you haven't checked out the first part yet, I'll leave it linked below. Also, quick introduction. Hello, I'm Big Fan BL, and yes, the name is very literal. I love BLs, I watch them, I overthink them, and sometimes I get emotionally invested way more than I should. Today's video isn't about unpacking every detail. This is about first impressions, the kind that linger even after the trailer ends. A few titles slipped through in the first video, not because they aren't worth watching, but because they're easy to miss. One of them had almost no promotion. Another is an award-winning queer film that, surprisingly, very few BL channels are talking about. And the last one? It's the kind of show that makes you wish January would hurry up just so we can reach its final week. So today, I want to talk about 3 more BL releases coming in January 2026, each for very different reasons. And yes, this is very much a continuation, so if you haven't checked out my first January BL recommendations, you might want to start there. Now, let's talk about the ones that deserve a second look. What excites me the most about Hard Nights is that it's a mature love story, and honestly, that alone makes it stand out. When we talk about inclusivity in BL, I feel we also need to talk about age representation. So many BLs today lean heavily into high school romances, where every few months we see the same emotional beats recycled, just with a different aesthetic, whether it's a Japanese school, a Korean campus, or a Thai uniform, and of course, different faces. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate those stories. High school BLs can be lighthearted, comforting, and fun in their own way. But it's rare that we get to see a couple from an older age group navigating love when life has already shaped them. Hard Nights starts where most romance stories usually end. It explores what happens after the honeymoon phase, when relationships evolve as people do. It acknowledges that love doesn't have to be either overly dramatic or perfectly smooth sailing. It often sits somewhere right in the middle. You're accustomed to the person you love, and yet, you can still take them for granted, or be surprised when you discover something about them that definitely wasn't listed on their Tinder profile back when you first met. My hope is that the series maintains this realistic tone and finds the right balance between romance, emotional honesty, and feel-good moments, without losing its grounding. And finally, speaking as an international viewer, I really wish the trailer had English subtitles. Its promotions have been extremely quiet, and most of the information available right now comes from online sources, and whatever context can be gathered from the trailer itself. Accessibility matters, especially for stories like this that deserve a wider audience. Next up is Cactus Pears, a queer romance that first made waves at international film festivals, notably winning the Grand Jury Prize in the World Cinema Dramatic Competition at Sundance. This semi-autobiographical film tells the story of Anand, a city worker who returns to his ancestral village to observe a 10-day mourning period for his father. Amidst the rhythms of rural life, he reconnects with his childhood friend, Balya, a farmhand who has lived his whole life under the dual pressures of tradition and expectations about masculinity and marriage. Cactus Pears is very different from most BLs on this list. There are probably no overtly intimate moments, no grand romantic declarations, and possibly no on-screen kisses at all. But from the trailer alone, it promises something far rarer: quiet, exceptional storytelling. I'll be honest, I was sleeping on this film too, until very recently. It wasn't until the TIFF YouTube channel released the trailer that it caught my attention, and even then, the story is revealed almost in whispers. At first glance, you wouldn't even know this is a film about 2 men longing for each other. That hush-hush treatment feels intentional. The trailer uses a muted color palette. Anand is often dressed in blacks and grays, moving through life with a kind of emotional restraint. And then, Balya enters the frame. Slowly, the colors soften. The silences change. The characters begin to open up, not loudly, but carefully. These visual decisions reflect a very intentional storytelling approach, where the emotional subtext is carefully translated on screen. What Cactus Pears captures beautifully is life in a small town, where simplicity exists, but so do restrictions. Where connection is possible, but expression is complicated. The feeling this trailer leaves you with is very different from commercial queer cinema. It doesn't ask to be consumed, it asks to be understood. And yes, I'll admit, my expectations are high. Unlike most BLs on this list, Cactus Pears is a feature film, not a series. It premiered at festivals like Sundance and won the Grand Jury Prize, and has been shown with English subtitles in limited theatrical runs in the US and elsewhere, but it hasn't landed on a major streaming service yet. So if you're curious, watch for festival or art house screenings, or check limited releases from distributors like Strand Releasing. And finally, there's Yesterday, another January BL that blends emotional stakes with a sense of dramatic tension. At its center are Ver and Kelvin, two heirs from different business families, each tied to powerful corporate clans in the story. Ver is the heir of the VPG Group, and Kelvin is the second son of the King Group. Their past was marked by betrayal and separation, and when they unexpectedly reunite in Chiang Mai, they must face not just their unresolved feelings, but the lingering tensions and power struggles that once pulled them apart. What excites me about Yesterday isn't just Fort Pete returning as a beloved pair, but also Pete stepping into a much darker, morally gray space. After watching him portray pain and vulnerability so convincingly in Love in the Air and Love Sea, seeing him now as an obsessive, possibly psychotic lover feels like a bold and refreshing shift. From the trailer alone, his performance looks intense, controlled, and genuinely unsettling, and I can't wait to see how far he pushes himself in this role. That said, I do have a genuine concern. I hope the series doesn't use the label of psychopath as an excuse to overindulge in extended intimate or shock value scenes, something that Love Sea struggled with. In that series, it often felt like there was a compulsive need to insert at least one intimate sequence per episode, not because the narrative demanded it, but simply to keep the audience hooked. Over time, that approach actually diluted the chemistry instead of strengthening it, making moments that should have felt charged feel repetitive and oddly hollow. With Yesterday, especially given its themes of obsession, control, and psychological imbalance, I really hope intimacy is used with intention, to deepen character or move the story forward, rather than a spectacle. The hints of bondage and control in the trailer could be incredibly powerful if handled with restraint, but if leaned on too heavily, they risk becoming mere shock elements instead of meaningful storytelling tools. I'm also deeply curious about how the story chooses to end. Does it challenge obsession, allowing Ver to walk away while Kelvin is left to confront the damage of his fixation, like the haunting shot of him alone on the cold floor, crying where he once held control? Or does it attempt to justify manipulation and captivity under the guise of love? That choice will ultimately define whether Yesterday becomes a daring psychological BL or falls back into familiar, uncomfortable territory. January 2026 may look quiet on the surface, but there's a depth here for anyone willing to dig a little deeper. Whether it's Hard Nights, Cactus Pears, or Yesterday, these are BLs that care less about spectacle and more about emotional weight. Tell me, which one's going on your watch list in the comments below? And please subscribe to the channel for more such content.